What's up, old school homies? Let's talk about finishing things that you started. I think there's more than one angle to go with when people say that to you, because it's usually actually condescending when people say that. They have an idea in their mind of like where you should go with what you're doing, and it's always to the top. Like, oh, you're so good at surfing. Maybe you could be a pro surfer one day, or you know, you're so good at mechanics. Why aren't you a mechanic for a race team? I mean, they're logical questions, and there's nothing wrong with these questions. But notice that people always want a little bit more. And then if you gave them that, they wouldn't care either. They'll still kind of like try to find something else that you should do. And you're like, I've done everything. Why do I need to prove myself to people? Is there some pinnacle I have to reach in order to complete something? And that's what I figured out over time is the journey is better than the destination a lot of times. If you kind of are interested in something, then you can continuously do it with passion. When people want you to do something just because they want you to do it, unless you're a real people pleaser, it doesn't actually matter to you personally. Like, you'll have your own vision of, what you think is the end point. And I've learned over time, a lot of times people want money to be a part of the end point. Like, wow, you're spending a lot of time doing that. Maybe you should do that for a job and totally ruin it. And you're just like, that's why people don't understand me a lot of times. They'll say, man, you're so good at this or you're so good at that. Why don't you just do that? Eh, the reason I'm not an artist for a job is because I don't want to ruin it. That doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but what if you took something that you really enjoyed and then you just continuously did it until you didn't like it anymore? Has that ever happened to you? It's happened to me. I found things that I love doing, and then you work for a company or you work with some other guy. Here's one. I worked with a dirt bike motor builder. I thought he was so cool. He could build motors, you know, so interesting. Who works on motors? Hardly any people work on motors. Even real mechanics don't even touch motors most of the time. But I found some guy that made his own valve seats, welded radiators that were bigger onto smaller bikes. He would do anything. He was a really badass mechanic. But he didn't show up to work. I would sit on the curb for a couple hours waiting for him to show up. He didn't care anymore. Pretty much reached the pinnacle of what he was going to do. And there I am, chopping at the bit, hoping that he's going to share some of his knowledge with me and that I could be as good of a dirt bike motor builder as he is. And then I came to realize that just wasn't it for me. I didn't care enough. Like, after just looking up to him and hoping that I could be like him and then seeing his end point, it just wasn't appealing to me anymore. He pretty much killed it for me. Like, the way that he looked when he showed up to work, everything, his attitude, he was over it. It was just a job. And people think, you're so good at something, just do it for money. And a lot of times money ruins shit.